For this bread, I fed the starter twice since the fridge. This is how it's looking. It had dropped a little bit just before making the bread, but I think that was okay. So I moved forward by weighting the water. I was going for an 85% hydration, which is the highest I've ever done. Then 200 grams of starter, which is 20%. And then I was using my usual mix of 80% white wheat flour and 20% rye and 14 grams of salt. I mix everything by hand using a dough scraper to clean up the bowl, and the final dough temperature was 24 degrees. I then used a setup to keep it at 24 and rest it for 30 minutes, and then start the gluten development by doing stretch and folds every 30 minutes 4 times. Here's the second set of stretch and folds. Again, just continue developing the gluten. It felt better and better, so I started doing coil folds. Another bit of resting, and then pure coil folds this time. It felt amazing. The dough was coming together beautifully. I was worried it wouldn't be able to take the water, but clearly it was doing so. And here are the last set of coil folds, and you can see that the dough is behaving really nicely and is keeping the tension. I cleaned the bowl and oiled it so that I could transfer it to a clean bowl, and then I let it rest for about 2 hours. The dough was clearly jiggly and it was coming off the sides, but it was flatter than usual. I decided to stop bulk fermentation because it was feeling quite flat. It took more effort than usual to get it off the bowl. Here I'm just putting the dough together so that I can separate it into 3 different loaves. I split it in about 1/3 each, or that's what I was aiming for. And then I pre-shaped them and left them on the counter for not that long, maybe 10 minutes. Then I start shaping them. Here's the first bowl. You can see that I flatten it up and then I shape it into a ball. I put some rice flour onto my banneton and a bit of normal flour onto my bread, and then I continue adding tension to it and add a bit of flour on top. I do the same thing with the second bowl. The dough was quite sticky. It was my first time working with 85%, and I could tell it was a little bit more challenging than usual. Here is the last one, is the one that I find the most challenging just because of how long the tins are. The important thing to remember is that the good side needs to be looking up, and that you need to be using baking paper for this one so that you can bake it straight from the fridge. I sprinkled a little bit of rice flour onto the top so that the score would show later on. Sorry, here my filming wasn't the best, but basically I went for scoring reasonably simple. And for the thin bread, I also went for a super simple scoring, and I put it in the oven to bake it at 240 degrees for 30 minutes. Here I am removing the lid and doing the last part of the bake for 12 minutes with the lid off. The oven spring wasn't terrible, maybe it could have been a bit more. And here they are, still cracking, really hot from the oven. Oh, so warm. I managed to get my boyfriend to film me so that I could cut them. The crumb was just light and airy with very big bubbles, which I think is a consequence of the 85% hydration. The bread was still a little bit warm when we were cutting it here, and what you can see is we devoured so much of it right after. Delicious. Definitely the best crumb yet. 85% hydration. Thanks for watching.